Hey there. Welcome to another edition of the Solar Panel. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for coming by. We had Suns Media Day today. As always, I'm your host, Dave King, and I am joined today by a couple of guys who contribute and help out on the Bright Side of the Sun site. And we were all there together at Media Day. Brandon and Trevor were on Zoom while I was there in person. Hello, Trevor Booth. How you doing today?
Good, doing good, Dave. Getting ready for another season. Excited to roll with it.
All right. And Brandon, how you doing?
Doing great. It's crazy that the season's already back. Still can't believe it, but I'm excited to get into it.
Wow. All right. So, yep. Welcome to the show, folks. I appreciate you coming on. It's a what 3 p.m. in the afternoon on a Monday. We usually don't broadcast right now, but you know what? We had to get up there. We had to talk about this. We all just got done frantically transcribing things and writing recap stories. And I had a one-on-one with campaign that I'm going to be posting later on, and it was a really, really fun time today at Media Day. Um, Trevor, let's start with you. This was your first media day. What was your biggest takeaway from today's experience?
Yeah, Dave, I think we could really tell that this is just a team that's driven to get back to the finals, and obviously, but a team that really is focusing on the culture it has in place. We'll get into this later in the podcast, but James Jones and Monty Williams were both very confident in what they've been able to do. And it proves we know who James Jones is a guy who's been a champion throughout his career and retooling this roster and putting it in a position to compete again. And, Monty, he talked about getting away from basketball for a few weeks when he was in Texas with his kids kind of moving away, but they seem like a group that is going to be refreshed. I know it's only day one in training camp. We'll continue to see, but they are very confident in the culture they have and what they have moving forward.
What do you think, Brandon? What was your takeaway from today?
Yeah, I think Trevor nailed it. I think it's just top to bottom, the culture's changed. You can kind of see that. No one looks satisfied. No one's like shying away from the short turnaround. It looks like they're embracing that. And that's what you expect from a championship team. They're going to go into the season looking to win every single game, keep stacking the wins, and build themselves and put themselves in good position for the playoffs. Because we saw what that did for them last year, just getting the home court advantage and all that. So I think their continuity is also going to be a huge factor that you kind of saw just in the media day. It seems like everyone's happy to get back. Everyone wanted to be there. There was no drama, so no fire alarms going off either, like over in Washington. So it seems like a pretty good day.
Yeah, no kidding. No fire alarms, that's for sure. Everybody looked like they were excited to be back, like you guys said. One thing was funny is I went into the day wondering if, gosh, are these guys going to seem like they're back too soon? Are they going to feel like they're back too soon? It's been barely, just over 2 months since they last played a game. Is it going to feel like they hadn't had enough time off? But the first guy we talked to was James Jones. And James Jones, this guy went to 7 straight finals. So he knows what short off seasons look like. He knows how you're supposed to come back on the next media day, what kind of attitude you're supposed to have, what kind of focus you're supposed to have. That's the thing. And as soon as I saw that and I asked him about it, and I said, what do you think? What do you think these guys are going to do? How are they going to react coming back off that big? He's like, you'd have to ask the players. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we're starting at square one again. Just because we're in the finals this last year doesn't mean we belong in the finals again next year. We have to earn that. We have to get there. And it's step by step. And Monty Williams said the same exact thing. That was my big takeaway is anyone thinking the Suns were going to fall off back into, any kind of depths of despair or anything like that, or worried that the Suns were not going to be as focused coming into this season again. I think talking to James Jones, Monty Williams, and a little bit later on, Chris Paul put all that to rest. These are the same dudes we just saw trying to win in the NBA Finals, and they're going to be trying just as hard this next year. So that's my big takeaway. Um, we got a couple of folks in the chat with questions. The first person, Isoquant asked, did you guys notice, did any players stand out who looked like they put on some muscle over the offseason? Did it look like anybody came back bigger in that last 2 months?
I think so. Cam Johnson, just from the pictures, looks like he did. Um, the whole offseason narrative does get a little bit tiring. It's like oh, player X put on like X amount of weight, and everyone just kind of looks into it too much. But it's always a good thing. I mean, him and Mikal both looked a little bit thicker, so and they're two guys that need to add that strength to guard those bigger forwards. So just looking at the pictures and just seeing them in those interviews, it's like they put on a little bit of muscle. So definitely a positive, but nothing to go crazy about.
Trevor,
Yeah,
do you notice anything? Yeah.
I think same deal. It's kind of hard to tell just because it's only been, like you said, Dave, like 2 months. So how much can you really do in that kind of span? I think just from a confidence standpoint, moving away from weight, I think Deandre Ayton was really confident in terms of saying that Phoenix is going to be lit for this season and what he's going to put forward into that. And for him, too, a guy that just had a really great playoff run and a productive one where he said that, the world thought he was developing, but he's like, this is kind of who I always am. So he had some really quotes today. I think just outside of a weight perspective, maybe just a confidence perspective is what he brought.
According to the roster that the Suns released yesterday, the final roster for the Suns coming into the season, JaVale McGee is 20 pounds heavier than DeAndre Ayton. Do you guys think that's possible? Is he really 20 pounds heavier?
I don't think so. I mean, unless I'm missing something, maybe I have to see it in person, but it seems like he's only like 1 inch taller. So I don't think, that makes a huge difference. Yeah.
He's just got old man weight, right? Like I'm heavier than I was in my early 20s. So, and I don't feel like I'm certainly not any taller. That's for sure. But maybe it's just older man weight since there is 12-year difference between them, 12-year difference between them on the calendar. So that could be it. DeAndre just might be up to 270 without lifting another weight in his life by the time that happens. I tell you what I thought was really cool was that everybody seemed like they were the same person that left. Like I mentioned that earlier, but DeAndre is another example. He has always talked like this. He has always talked like, yeah, I'm ready to dominate. I'm ready. There's more to come. There's a lot more to me to show. But then in the next sentence, he's like, but I'm defense first. And my biggest things that I know how to do and that I'm really, really good at is talking on defense and getting people in the right position and being the anchor and everything. And some people might have taken that as DeAndre Ayton blustering as a young guy will do. But I think that's just DeAndre Ayton being chill and being the DeAndre Ayton that came from the beach and is always just happy-go-lucky. One comment he made was, all the players were being asked, what was it like looking back on being in the finals? What did you take away? What did you learn from that? What are you hurting about? What are you reliving in your mind? And Ayton's just like, man, I look back at that footage and I couldn't believe that was me. He's like, I couldn't believe I was in the finals doing those things at 22 years old. He was just as in awe as we are. And that reminds me of the same Ayton when he was a rookie, just saying, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm playing basketball. And after his very first game as a pro, he had a double-double against Luka Doncic's Mavericks when they were both rookies on opening night. And he was like, that's the most fun I've ever had in a basketball game. And he's had a lot more games like that where he's had tons of fun. And I just think DeAndre Ayton is just into having fun. That doesn't mean he's going to ever do anything to detriment the team, but he's always going to find a way to have fun. So what did you guys think when Ayton mentioned, somebody asked, are you going to play sometime next to JaVale McGee in the lineup? What did you guys think of Ayton's answer when he's like, heck yeah, Monty, are you listening? Trevor, you go first this time.
I remember watching DeAndre back at Arizona when he did play the 4, and that just did not work. I mean, it was out of position, and from today's NBA perspective, you limit shooting in that regard, right? So it just doesn't make a lot of sense for it to happen unless we're going to see DA pop out and start shooting threes on a consistent basis. But just from a spacing thing and not being able to rebound or be in position in the same way, I don't know. I think they need JaVale to back him up. And that was clear in the finals that they didn't have that guy once Sarge went down. So, you can maybe throw it out there at times, but it probably shouldn't be a consistent thing.
What do you think, Brandon? Are you ready to see the two-headed monster?
Not particularly. I think, certain matchups, like it would make sense, but I feel like that's for the most part, I'd be fine with Ayton just getting the bulk of the center minutes and, Javale just backing him up, kind of like Trevor mentioned. But yeah, I think as far as DeAndre's personality, that's just who he's always been. He's just a giant kid. He just has a lot of fun. Like even his pre-draft process, like before going to Arizona, he's always been the same way. He's also always been very coachable too. So I think some of the stuff you're seeing taken out of context with his quotes and stuff, like people could take it the wrong way, but he's just, everything he does is like out of, good spirit and good heart. He's just very like take it easy type of vibe. So yeah, I enjoyed his media day. I do think he's maturing too before our eyes. Just having a kid and like the dad strength is also a factor too. So it's still kind of a balance of him being a kid, but also growing up a little bit.
Absolutely. I just think he's on a team with guys who are getting older. There isn't a ton of guys who obviously are late in their careers. You've only got JaVale and Chris Paul and to some extent Jay Crowder, but they're also not super young anymore. The third youngest guy on the team right now is Landry Shaman, who was just acquired and just turned 24. Everybody else is in the 24, 25, 26 range. So these guys are getting more mature, as you're saying, Brandon, but it's one of those things where Ayton's always going to be one of the kids. What's so funny is that Mikal Bridges is another one of the kids, and yet he's quieter about it. And so people don't like lump him in with DA, and they're not the same kind of kid. But when Chris Paul talks about who are the Suns like a family, Chris Paul, yeah, they're my family. And JC and Mikal are like my kids because they're just so they just have fun. And you guys see Mikal dancing pregame and stuff like that and having fun that way. But they really are they're growing up and they're just trying to enjoy while at the same time taking it serious. And I think we're just so lucky as Suns fans to watch this team. These guys have already proven they can do what every other team in the NBA wants to say they can do. And they've already proven they can without being different than who they really are. We got another question in the chat. Let's see. Another from IsoQuant. Was there any sense that we might see another roster move before the October 20th season opener? There was someone mentioned about, are you missing anything on the roster still? And James Jones made a quick comment about they still have a roster spot open and they might look to see what's out there in preseason. But we did not. Media day is not about what's going to change on your roster. Media day is about introducing who's already on your roster. And so we got 10-minute interviews with guys like Chandler Hutchinson and Chasen Randall, who Chasen Randall is not taking the 15th roster spot. He's on a training camp contract still. Otherwise, James Jones would not have said the Suns had a spot open because they wouldn't if he was on a full deal. So the Suns are still looking. And of course, as Flex, our friend of the show, Flex from Jersey, says they're still in talks about the Thaddeus Young and all that, but nobody with the Suns was talking about other acquisitions today. They were only talking about introducing themselves and their roster as well. So what do you, let's shift gears to another takeaway from the day. Brandon, you had a takeaway that it seemed like they were excited about their new acquisitions.
Yeah, I think a lot of players went out of their way to mention JaVale McGee and Landry Shaman. It seemed like Mikal was really excited to play with Shaman, and we've already seen him like at ASU, taking the picture in the football game with him. So it seems like they have that chemistry. They knew each other pre-draft, and Shaman was talking about his relationship with him and DeAndre just being in the pre-draft process. So I thought that stood out. It seemed like they're just all excited to play with JaVale too, just having a veteran that's kind of been there and done that, especially DeAndre. His eyes lit up when he started talking about JaVale, so I thought that was funny. But yeah, it just seems like those two additions are going to be seamless fits. They already know what their roles are, so there's not going to be a ton of growing pains as far as like integrating them into their offense and stuff like that. So I think the continuity from what they already have with their top 7 coming back and then adding those two guys, it's just going to be a quick transition, and they're going to hit the ground running this season.
I thought that was interesting. Trevor, I'm sorry to talk over you real quick, but I thought it was interesting with Shaman. right after he was acquired, Summer League happened, and Shamet was already sitting with the guys on the sidelines in Vegas next to Javon Carter, who Mikal Bridges says he still talks to almost daily. And he's happy for Javon Carter having an opportunity potentially with the Nets. At least he'll be on a winning team again. So there's just a lot of love around these parts.
And
Trevor,
Javon, sorry to cut you
ahead.
off. And do you see Javon actually went and shook hands with Jones during that game too?
Yeah, he did
That would
after
never
being
happen
traded.
under McDonough. So,
Oh God, McDonough did anybody burn more bridges than Ryan McDonough after trades? Unbelievable. I mean, that guy, yeah, and players, even if Ryan McDonough didn't do anything publicly, no player was friends with Ryan McDonough. It's just they just weren't. They just weren't. You know what? You know what's sad is when more players are fans of the owner Robert Sarver than the GM Ryan McDonough. I mean, that's sad because Robert Sarver didn't make any friends with his CBA negotiations back in 2011. Okay, Trevor, do you have any comments on this before we move on to the next question?
No, I think briefly just to recap it was in positions of need, right? So you got two guys who are comfortable in their roles, like Brandon said, and who are going to be ready to produce. We heard from Landry Shaman the other day on the radio, and he said he's excited just to play alongside Chris Paul and get in that mode. So that's a guy who's humble and ready to work, and we've seen that throughout his career at Wichita State and what he's done past in the NBA as well.
All right. Good. Yes, I'm excited about the acquisitions. Mikal Bridges also spent a minute talking about how he remembers Landry Shaman as a point guard in college, and he was surprised in their rookie seasons when Shamet was playing a JJ Redick type role, running off screens and catch and shoot, but not really handling the ball at all. So Mikal is actually looking forward to seeing if Shamet is going to be running point at all or ball handling. And my thought on that was we won't know until we see it, but the Suns do a lot of two guard offense. I mean, you've got Devin Booker carrying two ball handler offense because you got Devin Booker handling the ball a lot next to Chris Paul and next to Cameron Payne. So I don't see any reason why Landry Shamet wouldn't get a little more ball handling opportunities this year. Okay, David Bailey asks, are the rumors that the Suns and Spurs are waiting for a certain day due to restrictions? Let's talk about this really quick because I think there's probably still a strong sense that a Thad Young deal will happen. And the only rules that could possibly be in play are the 60-day rule after a trade with aggregation or a third team. So what Flex pointed out last week, and as I got confirmed with other league sources as well, is if the Suns just wanted to acquire Thad Young for Dario Saric and Jalen Smith, nothing is stopping that right now. Nothing. There's zero because Thad Young is not being aggregated, and neither Saric nor Jalen Smith were traded in the last 60 days. So no, there's nothing holding that up. So if the Suns are waiting for anything, which is what some people are hearing, it's because there's another team involved, and that other team cannot be involved until 60 days pass from the Thad Young trade because he's the only one of those three being traded, having been traded recently. So it's possible. And if that's the case, then it's right around October 6th or so, which is toward the end of training camp and the beginning of, actually, it's right after the first preseason game. So if anything happens with a Thad Young, it would happen then. What do you guys think? Should the Suns do that trade and get Thad Young? And what kind of role do you see him having on the team if that's the case? Have you guys put any thought into that? Trevor, you go first this time.
Yeah, not too much, but I think from an experience perspective, again, if that's something you want to look at, because I believe the deal does involve Jalen Smith, and we talked about that throughout this offseason, just if you want to fill that rather than have a development project, that's a guy who can come in and do that right away, but haven't given too much thought in terms of the fit and how it would look from a game planning perspective and things of that nature.
The problem with Thad Young is he doesn't take 3-point shots.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not a shooter. That's my big worry about him clogging up kind of the offense. Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm all on board with it. I think him and Crowder kind of complement each other well. Just to go off your point, if they need some shooting in those closing lineups and a bigger forward, you could throw Jay out there. if you need someone that can guard maybe some fours and small ball fives, I think that is like one of the best, most underrated defenders in the league. So I'm just a big fan of adding good players, which is something
Yeah,
James
right.
Jones loves to do.
Is
So
also, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I'm all for it. I'm not too attached to Jalen Smith or even like future second round picks or, you know, an injured Saric or anything like that. So by all means, if the trade presents itself, I'd pull the trigger.
Okay, so the next question in the chat is related. So it's a little bit of a tangent here. Did Jalen Smith, New Hope Manny asked if Jalen Smith talked and what did he say? Yep, both him and Charge, who we just talked about possibly being traded, did talk today. And what happened was basically Shards came in and just said how frustrated he was in just the situation when he hurt his knee in the first game of the finals. That he's like, man, that 10 to 12 minutes really could have helped backing up DA because DA was kind of on an island out there as the only big man left in the Suns rotation. And so Shards said his rehab is month to month at this point. I think he said I'll have to look back at the transcript, but I think he said today was the first time he had ridden a bike since his surgery on his torn, I think it was a meniscus, maybe it was the ACL. But anyway, today was the first day on a bike. And now they're counting by month to month instead of anything sooner than that. So he's a ways away. He may or may not even play this season. As far as Jalen Smith, to New Hope Manny's question, Jalen Smith talked the way Jalen Smith always talks. So if you guys listen to any summer league post games at all, same dude, and he's happy to be there, happy to play, happy to get a chance. His rookie season did not go that as well as he had hoped for him personally, but because he didn't get to play at all, and he was just happy to be out there in summer league to play, and he's hoping that he gets a chance to play here in the preseason. Did you guys get any other takeaways from the Jalen Smith snippet at all?
I think that you recapped it right there.
Yeah, just a typical Jalen Smith interview, just kind of going through the motions. He's still young. He needs to prove himself, and he knows that. So we'll see.
All right. Did either of you guys, now we'll move on to Chandler Hutchinson. Whoops, wrong one. Did either of you guys hear the Chandler Hutchinson interview? Or were you already furiously transcribing at that time?
Yeah, I was transcribing then.
That's what I thought. I almost didn't stay for Hutchinson because I was like, I gotta get back and get to work.
I did listen
Brandon,
to it.
what
Actually,
did you think? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I actually thought him and Cam Johnson were the two most interesting interviews. So if you guys have a chance, like once those videos go live, the viewers just go check those out. I think he's really self-aware. He knows, like, just in the interview, I tweeted this. He just reminded me a little bit of like campaign when he first got here, just like the humility and not taking the situation for granted. And I was also surprised at how familiar he was with like the Suns personnel. Like he knew he was throwing out stuff that like it seems like only Suns fans would know. So obviously he's done his homework. He knows the situation. So, you know, I don't see him getting a ton of minutes or anything, but when he does, I think he'll be ready.
Like you said, he knows things that a lot only Suns fans would do. It's just surprising. We're so used to being in our own little world down here in Phoenix because the Suns were so bad for so long. But Hutchinson just in the middle, he's like, yep, they went 8-0 in the bubble and barely missed the playoffs. And then he's talking like one of us. And I think it's just all basketball fans, including players, just really love the story of the Phoenix Suns. And one of the common themes that I heard from guys who signed with the Suns this offseason, Javale Mcgee, Landry Shaman getting acquired, Chandler Hutchinson, all those guys are just, they wanted to be a part of what the Suns had to offer. The next question is, did Elfrid seem to be happy back in Phoenix? Elfrid's another guy who signed with the Suns, and he said the same thing, that he liked what he saw from the Suns organization. He wanted to be a part of a winning team. He's not much of a talker. If you ranked the quality of the interviews, these guys aren't hired to be interviewees. They're hired to be basketball players. But if you ranked the quality of the interviews, he might be toward the bottom because he's just quiet and he doesn't offer a lot to a conversation. But he did say that he was really happy to be back with the Suns, like you should say after you sign as a free agent. Did you guys get anything else out of the Alfred interview that I might have missed?
I think just the fact that he came back and said that the vibe and the culture is just so much different than it was before, and mentioned the arena being upgraded and things that are going into the practice facility, and just the vibe is so much different. And we can definitely attest to that. Just what we had seen in the previous half decade before, things turned around last year. So I thought that was an important point too.
Yeah, I pretty much echo that. And I know he brought up the practice facility twice, maybe 3 times. So it seems like that was a big selling point for him. And his relationship with Chris Paul also was brought up by him and Chris. Chris called him family. So it seems like there's something there as well.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I asked him a question specifically about what made you choose the Suns when you already knew Chris Paul as the starter and Cameron Payne as the backup, knowing you're going to be in a heavy point guard situation. And he just said Chris called him, and James Jones called him, and Monty Williams called him, and they wanted him to be part of the organization. He felt like he was wanted here, and every player just wants to be wanted. Elfrid Payton did not have the greatest love from his fans in New York because they all wanted Derrick Rose or I'm drawing a blank on who their rookie was this past year, their rookie guard, but basically, Emmanuel Quickly. So everyone wanted to see those two guys more often, and so every minute that Elfrid was on the court, those guys weren't, and so that's why he kind of got lost in the shuffle there. But he's also not expected to do a whole lot this year, as a third point guard in case of emergency kind of thing. And so someone asked if he felt pressure coming to the Suns and proving himself on the 1-year deal. And he said, no, I don't feel any pressure. I think that was him, or was it Landry Shaman? I can't remember. Shaman also said about the practice facility that was really great. And he said something like, what he really likes about this team is that it's more like a college atmosphere than the prior teams he'd been on. Landry Shaman, coming from veteran playoff teams his whole career, he's only played for the Sixers. He's played for the Sixers, Celtics, and Sixers, Clippers, and Nets, and they've all been wanting to make the finals. And now he comes to a team that has made the finals, and he feels more like college than anything else because they're sharing the practice facility with the Mercury, and everyone's just hanging out, being friends and stuff. And he thinks it's great. So Shamit's really excited to be here too. I think just the whole team, the vibe is good with the team, and I'm happy to see that nothing has changed as far as we know so far over the summer. Coda Kid, I did not see Larry Fitzgerald there, but what they did at Media Day this year is they had sequestered us basically into the media room and left us there, and didn't leave us there, kept us there, and had all the players cycle in one at a time. In past media days, you just take over the practice court where everybody's just walking around saying hi to each other and talking to each other, and all the brass and all the personalities, and everybody's just kind of walking around. I didn't see Al McCoy today either, and I've never missed Al McCoy on a media day. I didn't see the radio guys at all. So it was different. It was like basically a post-game press conference for 4 straight hours. That's what it was. So we didn't see any extra people. Let's see. ISO Quant, are they doing any preseason stuff in Flagstaff this year? Not that I understand. I think it's all in Phoenix. You guys didn't hear anything about that, did you?
I don't think so.
Yeah. I love the Flagstaff thing. And I used to absolutely love going up there for training camp because it's so much cooler. It's a nice getaway. And we just did it 2 years ago. And the last time they had a training camp that was open to media. But they don't seem to be planning on doing that this year. Maybe they'll get back after that. Where will the scrimmage be? I don't think there's going to be a scrimmage. The first preseason game is next Monday, real preseason game. I haven't heard anything about a scrimmage at all. Sometimes they'll do one like the Saturday before to close out the training camp, but I haven't heard that mentioned yet. Let's see. Any Abdel Nader talk? Now, I was definitely gone by the time Abdel Nader talked. Did either of you guys catch Abdel Nader?
I wasn't on for him.
I did catch it. I thought it was over, and I kind of left my Zoom thing on, and there's such a long gap, and then I just hear like the volume noise come back on. I was like, oh, I guess Nader's talking. So yeah, he just talked about how it seemed like Phoenix wanted him back, and it was like a mutual feeling. They hit him up within like the first couple of days of free agency, and he's just been working on his athleticism. And he mentioned specifically like deceleration, something he wants to improve and get better at. Also threw in, he was kind of surprised Monty played him in the Western Conference Finals, which I thought was funny. Yeah,
that's right. I heard that.
Yeah,
we were all surprised. So it's great that he was surprised too.
yeah,
we never really got much of a chance to ask Monty about that. He was asked once or twice, in post game press conference. He just kind of I felt like he could help us, but we never really got to ask much more deep than that. Although Monty would make fun of us if we tried to make that a deep question. I think that's a little beyond what he wants to cover in a press conference. I really missed an opportunity with the Monty Williams part. I wanted to ask him, are you looking forward to 200 straight days of this again, Monty, after your short time off? I'm curious what his answer would have been. I don't think he's looking forward to it. Answering questions from us. Let's see. Now we got to go to a big part of the show. Well, not a big part, but a big discussion. A few minutes ago, maybe an hour ago now, news came out that Michael Porter Jr. got the full Supermax on a rookie deal, which means 25% minimum, 25% minimum over 5 years, designated rookie max. He would now be, wait a minute, how is this possible? Because aren't Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray already on designated rookie maxes? Or did Jamal Murray get less than max? Shoot, now I got to look that up. You can only have 2 designated rookie maxes. But definitely MPJ his value is up to $207 million over 5 years if he makes all NBA in this next year. Trevor, what's your thoughts on whether MPJ is worth the Supermax?
I mean, if you look at how he played defensively last year in the playoffs, I'm not too certain he would be. Granted, he's got a lot of talent as a scorer, but that is something crazy that he did to get that much.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do some research. What do you think on this, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, defensively, he has a long ways to go. But offensively, I could see he definitely has a pretty high ceiling on that end. But just the way the Suns target him in the playoffs specifically doesn't bode well for Denver in the long term. And that's a lot of money. But, I mean, they're not paying him for what he is now. They're paying for what he could be down the line, which I think you're also going to see DeAndre Ayton's agent has to just be licking his chops seeing that, because now I think there's no way he's going to get anything less than that at this point.
Yeah, so the scuttlebutt going around, sorry, I got something in my eye. The scuttlebutt going around was that the Suns were perfectly fine. This is all rumor. The Suns are perfectly fine paying 25%, the 25% number to DeAndre Ayton. But they didn't necessarily want to commit to the escalators up to 30%. Because that would further cut into the luxury tax that they might owe over the next 5 years if he does make all NBA or wins awards. It could also be that they were just simply negotiating within that 5% window like they did with Devin Booker a few years ago, that if you make this award, then you'll get 27%. If you make that award, you'll get 28%. I think now DeAndre Ayton's reps are just going to say 30 or nothing. I feel like that's the only thing they can say. You can't let DeAndre Ayton make less money than Michael Porter Jr., I don't think. I mean, can you? Is that even arguable anymore?
I don't think so. I mean, he's just becoming one of the top bigs in the league with what he did last year. He deserves to get paid. And it's like Chris Paul said, he got a bag coming his way. He should.
Yeah, especially with the salary cap increasing down the road. I think now's the time to just lock it up, and it's going to be tough to get him for anything less at this point.
Yeah, so I think now, I mean, the hope before was just stick with like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander got just the straight 5-year, $172 million, 25%. So there's no escalators. But that's now 4 max contracts coming out of the 2018 draft. And DeAndre Ayton is still the number 1 pick that led his team to the finals and was the playoffs MVP until one dude cooked him in the last 4 games of the finals, and now people are forgetting how great he was. Some people are forgetting how great Ayton was in the playoffs because he couldn't stop Giannis Antetokounmpo, who figured out how not to commit charges every other drive. So if we're going to hold that against Ayton, then we should just hand him the 30% right now. So I think Ayton now is going to get his 30%. And I don't think it's particularly much to worry about. I think the Suns just have to give it now. Like I said, there's already 4 maxes out there, 3 of which are super max already. So you got to give it to him. And now the other question is Mikal Bridges. Does the MPJ contract impact Mikal Bridges negotiations, or is he completely different in you guys' minds? We'll start with you, Brandon.
I think a little bit of both. I think both recent Denver extensions with Gordon and MPJ could sort of be used as a parallel for Mikal, just to for market value. But there's also not a ton I think you could take out of it. I think Mikal obviously wants to be here, and they'll figure something out. But I think it's just more of a trend that the market is geared for overpays at this point, which this is just kind of what they're worth. So I think Ayton and Mikal are both going to get paid, and NBA fans might call it an overpay on the surface, but that's just the reality of the situation.
Trevor, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Brandon nailed it pretty much. For a guy like Mikal who's going to provide that two-way value, especially the market, he's got it. That's definitely a baseline what we're seeing, and he's got to get paid too. So I agree with everything Brandon said.
So what do you guys think though is the number? Is he a max? He's not. Mikal can't be max, can he?
I don't think so. I think it'll be something like around that 25 million range, 25 mil per year. That's just my guess. Who knows? His agents are probably trying to get as much as they can, obviously, and they should. But yeah, these contracts, I don't think they help in lowering the number at all. If anything, it just raises the leverage.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, Flex on our show here said that Mikal and Mikal's deal is more close to being done than DA's. And the reason, at least from what Flex was hearing, is that Mikal was around everybody was going to be comfortable in the 95 to 100 range. It's just a matter of finalizing that actual last $1 million a year. And there's really no rush to finish these contracts because, first of all, they're not going to start making the money for another year. Second of all, the deadline is October 18th, which is literally almost a month away still. So it's not a big deal. Everybody does things at their deadlines. They don't do them way ahead of time if they don't have to. So I'm not worried about Mikal. But now that MPJ got the full max, I wonder if Mikal's people are now suddenly going to be asking a little bit higher than 95 to 100 over 4 years. One thing to consider is that because DeAndre and Devin Booker are both on assuming DeAndre gets the 5 years, assuming DeAndre gets the 5 years this fall, then, and Devin Booker already being on 5 years, you cannot give Mikal 5 years this fall. You just can't, especially on anything less than max. So does Mikal wait until next spring? John Collins. I just almost forgot. John Collins waited until the next spring to get 5 years, $125 million after turning down a $90 million extension the fall before over 4 years. Trevor, do you think if you're Mikal Bridges, and your people, and you're happy being in Phoenix, you don't want to leave, you want to stay forever, but would you want to just ride out the season and wait and see if you can get the 5-year deal next spring, or would you sign right now? What do you think, Trevor?
Yeah, no, that's a difficult situation. I'm sure you probably have more insight on it than me. I think the priority has to be right now, look at winning, right? Like winning this year with what you got, and just letting that kind of come as an aside of it. We've seen in other sports where guys have gotten hold up in contracts before, and then, you have to play a season too. So I think that's just a balance of, okay, let's try to focus on improving and winning a championship here, and let that thing take care of itself also.
Absolutely. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, I think anytime you can get a contract situation figured out before the season, it probably helps eliminate any distractions like moving forward throughout the year. So there's definitely a plus to doing that. But if he decides to ride it out and bet on himself, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world from his point of view, because like Mikel's not going to get any worse. I don't think he's going to regress in anything. So if anything, he's going to bet on himself and try to improve. But that being said, it is a very good team, very deep team. So will he have the opportunity to showcase the offensive skill set he's going to need to get those like gaudy numbers that he's going to want? So there's definitely risk involved anytime you take a risk like that. But from his point of view, I think it could make sense to wait, but I'm sure he'd probably rather get it done before the season starts.
So Coda Kid asks us, do you feel if there's any chance Mikel, now to get 5 years right now, Mikel would have to be given the max at the 25% at least. Is there any chance Mikel gets the 5-year max and Deandre is the one who waits until next summer? Either of you guys, what do you think?
I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, right.
I feel like Mikel is just, he just wants to get it done. I feel like he doesn't want to be dramatic. He's never been into the drama. I also feel like if anybody was going to feel slighted by it, it would be more likely to be Deandre. And I don't want to necessarily see Deandre with his child's bubble burst. You know what I mean? Like, he's walking around with his balloons right now. If you start bursting his balloons, what's going to happen? I don't necessarily want to test that. Although you can't just go through walking around like that. You have to make the right decisions for the Suns. So we go right back to what's the right decision for the Suns? Paying the number one pick who carried you in the playoffs and into the finals what he deserves. That's what you should do. Don't not because DeAndre Ayton wouldn't like it if he wasn't given the extension right now. I was just commenting that I think he'd be the one more likely to be affected by it negatively. I think he deserves it. I think the Suns should just go ahead now, do the 30% max for Ayton, and try to close out Mikel for 4 years, 100 million. And if it goes up a couple of bucks, it goes up a couple of bucks. I would just try to close them out. I think that makes sense. Now, the question is, can the Suns afford all that? Yeah, they can afford all that. They can afford all of it because Chris Paul's only guaranteed for 2 more years, and these guys' deals don't kick in for 1 more year. So there's really only a 1-year overlap of a ton of money, and that's just, you pay the luxury tax and you keep your guys. They've already proven they have the roster that can make the finals, so you keep your guys. Everything's good. If the Suns had lost in the first round last year, I would not feel the same way. I would feel like you can't lock up 4 guys on a first round loser. You can't. But they didn't. They made it all the way to the finals, and so now you can. I feel like that's a smart way to go. All right. We've been on here 45 minutes. I think there was a fun media day. Trevor, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything we haven't touched on that you wanted to make sure fans heard about for media day today?
I'd just say keep it locked on the site. We got some more transcribing to do, so that's what's coming next.
That's right. Trevor has been a beast today. He has already fully transcribed 3 interviews, and it only ended a couple of hours ago. And so you've got the full James Jones, and we're talking the site being brightsideofthesun.com, the full interview from James Jones, from Monty Williams, and from DeAndre Ayton. All 3 are up there. Ayton's, you'll love reading some of his quotes. Those are great. They did let us talk to all 15 guys. I don't think we're going to transcribe all 15 guys, but there's a couple more that we're going to want to get into. One thing we didn't talk about was Jay Crowder and his headspace, his that he hit a wall, that he was fried at some point last year. But I'll do that in my closing thought, so you don't steal it from me, Brandon. Trevor, thank you for being the beast this afternoon, and we're going to have a lot more coming. On not only just transcriptions, but also analysis of what we think of what we saw at Media Day. Brandon just posted as well. Actually, it's going up. I think it went up 15 minutes ago on brightsideofthesun.com. Brandon's his own recap from more of the interviews and his takeaways from the biggest interviews of the day and what he got out of it. What other things do you want to touch on right now, Brandon, before we close out?
Yeah, Trevor killed it with those recaps. I just try to make a quick rundown of everyone's like notable things I thought stood out. So go check that out on Brightside. Yeah, overall, I just think that the vibe, it's going to be a really fun team again. It seems like they're really bought in together, and everyone wants to be there. And I think you're going to start to see too, like around the league, that their culture, their practice facility, just the environment there is going to attract players that want to be there. So whether that's free agency or trades, I think the Suns are slowly building a place where people want to be, and it's just really cool to see that unfold after what we've been through like the past decade before Jones got here. So it just seems like a different team, and it was just fun to be a part of media day.
Yeah, so I'll just mention the one thing we hadn't touched on. Two things we haven't touched on. One is Dwayne Rankin did yeoman work today with the Arizona Republic. He asked every single player if they were vaccinated. And while it's a personal thing, it's still important because of the NBA and the way the NBA rules are. Every player said they were fully vaccinated. He was not in the room for one of them, but the way Chris Paul answered Dwayne's question was, you got to be vaccinated to play games, and no one here wants to miss games. So while Arizona itself may not preclude you from playing unvaccinated for your team, and the NBA is deferring to local markets for vaccination laws, and so as playing for the Phoenix Suns at home games not be a problem, but going around the league to different cities, there may be vaccination rules, and so none of the Suns want to miss games. So you got to kind of. Elfrid Payton did comment that he basically only got the vaccination done because of that. So I thought that was interesting that Dwayne actually went out on the limb to ask those questions. It's not a political thing. It's not a personal thing. It's more just asking for NBA benefits, because if you want to play all the games, you got to be covered. So that was interesting. The only other thing was Jay Crowder commented that he actually was mentally fried at some points last season. And it was refreshing to see people, or someone like him, talking with a little bit of vulnerability about maybe he wasn't his best self every day of the past, year. And some days, some weeks a week at a time, he was just like, wow, I don't even know if I like basketball right now. But you bounce right back, and he was great in the playoffs. So I thought that was really cool. So either between Trevor and I, we'll make sure that his interview is transcribed to make sure that you guys get to see his comments on mental health. Players are so, they don't want to lose, any of their macho-ness. And so they usually don't talk about mental health issues, but it's common amongst regular people, and they're regular people. So I thought that was cool. All right, folks. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate your viewing and joining us in the afternoon on a Monday while you're probably at work. Thank you for skipping out on work and watching this instead. We'll be uploading this on the audio feeds real soon. And I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to do it, but I have a 10-minute one-on-one interview with Cam Payne about how the playoffs went, how his free agency went, and what he's looking at going forward this year. And I might tack it on to the end of this audio feed, because it's only audio. We didn't have a camera set up. Or it might make it its own release on and add it on to something else. But you guys will hear a campaign interview on the audio feeds pretty soon too. So everyone, thank you for joining us. Smash a thumbs up on the YouTube, please, before you go, so it helps the algorithms. And if you're listening on the audio feed, on the podcast feed, give us a 5-star rating. Trevor, Brandon, I really appreciate you guys coming on this afternoon. Thank you for participating in Media Day and doing all the work to transcribe and write about it and talk about it. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate the invite.
All right.